If you are joining me, I just want to say welcome. Give you all a few minutes to come into the space. Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful week. I feel I've been very busy. I've been feeling very busy this week, considering that I did take some time off last week to travel to Louisville to spend some time with my sons. And so I was really happy to see them, and then happy to see my oldest son, Christian, performing. He's a Black Performance Studies minor at the University of Louisville, and they put on, he was cast into this incredible production. It's still happening. So if you're in Louisville or near Louisville, go check them out. The production is called What the Fire Did, and it is at the Henry Clay Theater in downtown Louisville. So check him out. He's going to be performing. In fact, he has a performance tonight, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. I think this is the last weekend. So if you're in Louisville, check him out. I'm just giving you all a few minutes to join before I get started. I am happy to be back in this space with you all. It's been a busy, busy week. I'm also preparing for the Reiki Master class. So yes, I have people signed up. I am excited, overjoyed to be teaching Reiki Master, which is the Reiki level 3. So if you are a Reiki healing practitioner, you've already completed Reiki levels 1 and 2. Now is the time for you to level up in your practice, in your Reiki profession. So check out my website and join the class. The last day to sign up for the class, though, is tomorrow. And so if you don't sign up for it this time and you are interested in being a Reiki master, then I will be offering it again, probably towards the end of the year. I have quite a few people that are certified in Reiki level 2 that will be ready to advance to Reiki 3, Reiki master. And so probably do the class again towards the end of the year. And so now I'm just checking to see if anybody is on. Shout out if you have joined me. I'm going to put this link so I can see your name in my news feed. If you are going to hang out with me for a little while during this live broadcast. And I don't know why I'm not able to find my page. There it is. So, welcome. This is Wednesday. For those in Central Standard Time and East Coast Time, you all's day is over. And so I'm going to put, if you want your name to appear in the chat. Okay. And so I have a lot of ground to cover, and I'm only going to scratch the surface this week because this is a topic that is really deep and it's really in depth, and just taking it like one step, one sound bite at a time, because I can get on here and probably talk hours about this topic, and I don't want to do that. I just want to shed a little bit of light or just give you some clarity on what I mean by intergenerational trauma and healing. So I'll give you all a few more minutes to jump into the live. If you are watching the live or watching a rebroadcast, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Wellness and Wisdom Wednesdays. I am happy to be back in this space with you after being gone. Yes, I was gone last week. And so I think I am going to get started. Oh, yeah, let me turn this music off. That's what I was trying to do, is turn Kim off, which I don't really want to do, but all right. Let me get started. Thank you for joining me. Thank you all. Welcome to the space. I see people are joining. Thank you. Thank you for joining me this evening, this Wednesday evening. I am back at you again, and I'm happy to be back in this space. And so I'm just checking my live feed. Yep, I am in business. And so let's get started. So, greetings, welcome back to our weekly chat. I am starting to really enjoy this space. I know, like, initially for me, it was a little bit daunting because I'm not big with video. And so, but I guess with video and live, you know what? I like video as long as I can record it. I'm just a little unsettled and unnerved sometimes with the live video. I love speaking and I love creating and getting out to you meaningful content and messages. But again, it's a little challenging in this live format. I love doing Zoom, and like I love doing virtual healing circles and virtual teaching classes, virtual and all of that. But it's just a little different because in those spaces, you have like active participation, you have an audience, people talk back to you. And so sometimes this one way communication is a little challenging for me. But I have been receiving just incredible feedback in terms of your thoughts about this format, in terms of questions, in terms of viewership. I have quite a few people that go and look at these videos after I do them live, and for all of that, I am really grateful. And so let's get started. And so tonight's topic, I really want to begin to unpack this concept of intergenerational trauma and healing. And so I know that I reference it a lot. I probably reference it in every single live that I do, but it came to my attention or awareness that, this is a fairly, I don't want to say new, but it is a fairly, I will say, novel concept and terminology that it's now being actively researched and understood as it is being it's starting to be integrated into a lot of psychology studies, a lot of medicine studies, a lot of trauma studies, where people are really starting to, and when I say people, scholars, researchers, teachers, practitioners are really starting to pay very, very close attention at the phenomena or the concept of intergenerational trauma and healing. And so, because I talk about it or I reference it a lot, I thought I would spend some time this week unpacking it with you a little bit, just in terms of basically what it means, how it impacts us. What is collective trauma, historical trauma, just kind of just shedding some light at a very, very surface level to give you an understanding of what I mean by intergenerational trauma and intergenerational healing, but it's deep. It goes very, very, very deep. And so I'm hoping that I can at least do it a little bit of justice on this platform, but I definitely encourage you all to ask as many questions as you need to ask to really begin to understand how it is at play and how it is working in your life and how it could be possibly inhibiting you from doing your work of healing. And so the concept of intergenerational trauma, very few people have a very clear understanding of what it is and how it shows up and shows out in our lives. And so I'll just start off by saying that we are all directly affected and influenced by our external environments. So let's start there. In fact, scientists have proven that environment directly affects all aspects of our beingness. It has a direct impact on our DNA. And so when you think about the most primal environment for all humans is the mother's womb. Okay. And in that space, they begin it, what begins to inform, or what it begins to inform physiologically and psychologically, is that individual's initial experience, their very primal experience on this planet. Their very primal experience as they're incarnating on planet Earth. And so that is a very sacred environment. And so from there, our offspring are directly impacted by the experiences of their external environment. So as we learn to explore and feel and grow emotionally, we are in the midst of being conditioned in a way, not in a way, we are being conditioned by the beliefs and the energies of those that we are in closest proximity to. And so, all of these experiences that we are exposed to within our environments, within the womb environment, within the external familial environment, within our society environments, all of these experiences, they live, breathe, and inform all of our relationships, our primal relationship with self, and then our relationships with others and our relationships to the world at large. So, therefore, when our environments are toxic, we begin to embody that toxicity and transmit it. Unbeknownst, it's not intentional. Unconsciously, we begin to transmit it to everyone we are connected to physically, psychically, and energetically. And so tonight, I want to unpack the concepts of intergenerational trauma and intergenerational healing. And as such, I want to invite you to explore how historical and intergenerational trauma has directly impacted your lives. Greetings. I am Kimberly J., spiritual teacher, scholar activist, master healing practitioner, and founder of the Journey to Wholeness Center. And I am here to hold a sacred healing space for you, equipped with tools and resources to empower you on your own unique journey to healing and wholeness. And I welcome you to Wellness and Wisdom Wednesdays. I said it right this time, y'all. Ask Kimberly J on live. And so, here in this space tonight, we're going to begin our time together in meditation, as I do every week or every time I do these lives. I want to begin in just a grounding exercise that allows us to really go within and be able to center ourselves and be able to listen with our hearts, full body, our full bodies versus just our minds. Because when we are able to absorb information and absorb wisdom with our bodies, it allows us to really feel more deeply into whatever experience we're trying to have, whatever wisdom we are trying to obtain. And so I want us to get quiet, get still, and just center the body. And it's also an excellent thing to do after a long, hard day of work or school or whatever it is you had to do all day. I invite you just to spend a few moments in meditation with me, and I'll guide you through that. And then once we are done with the meditation, I'll move forward with just sharing the wisdom teaching with you, which most times comes in the form of spiritual downloads, but it also can come in the form of some of my own personal lived experiences and some of the research or scholarship work that I do. And so today's talk is really going to be rooted in some of that work, some of the research that I've been working on over the last few years. And so lastly, I will open this space up and you can ask me anything, ask me any questions, type them in the comments, or if they're of a more personal nature and you want to email me and reach out to me personally, that's fine too. So you can ask me questions about anything that I shared with you in terms of the wisdom teaching, or if it's something else that's on your mind and heart and you want a deeper meaning or deeper wisdom or insight. As an intuitive, I often receive messages from your higher self or from spirit. And these messages can provide a deeper knowing, a deeper understanding of whatever it is that you have questions about or whatever it is that you're experiencing. So please feel free to write a comment or reach out to me, email me after the discussion is done. And so let's get started. And so I invite you, wherever you are, except for if you're driving, to just allow yourself to settle into your body. And what do I mean by that? Just first connecting to your breath, closing your eyes, and then just following the ebb and flow of your natural breath. We do so much movement and so much thinking, and just our day-to-day lives are so hectic that we very rarely get the opportunity to really settle into and feel more deeply into this awesome physical vessel called our bodies that enable us to do all the things that we need to do in this lifetime. This is our vehicle. Okay. And so it is sacred. And so honoring the sacredness of the body by giving it a little nurturing, a little time, a little attention. And so as you begin to follow your breath, just allow it to soften and settle your body. Noticing in this moment any tension or any stress as the breath continues to move through your body. It begins to soften those areas, drawing your awareness to any place in your body that you feel pain or discomfort. And then asking, petitioning the breath to soften that area, that spot, that space. And now I invite you to take a deep breath in from your belly, holding it in your heart, and then softly exhaling it out. Taking another deep breath in from the belly, hold it in your heart, and then softly exhaling it out. One more deep breath in. Hold it in your heart, and then softly exhaling it out. And now let's just briefly take a moment to activate, to clear, to balance our energy centers. Drawing your awareness to the area in the middle of your back, your root chakra, closer to your hips. Taking a deep breath in, holding it, and then softly exhaling it out. Moving to your sacral, the place right below your belly button. Take a deep breath in, softly exhaling it out. Drawing your awareness to your belly. Taking a deep breath in, softly exhale it out. Moving up to your heart. Taking a deep breath in, softly exhaling it out. Moving up to your throat. Take a deep breath in, softly exhaling it out. Moving up to the space in between your eyebrows, your third eye. Taking a deep breath in, softly exhaling it out. Moving to the top of your head, your crown chakra. Taking a deep breath in, hold it in your heart. And then as you exhale, gently saying, I am. Take a moment and allow yourselves to be fully charged, fully activated, exploring the peace, the stillness, the gentleness of your body in this moment. And now take a deep breath in, hold it in your heart, softly exhaling it out. And then allowing yourselves to come back into the space. Feeling energized, feeling at peace, feeling harmonious. Coming back very slowly and compassionately. So I welcome you back. I just need some tea. And so hopefully you feel empowered, still, open. Yeah, open. Okay. And so again, welcome back. So this evening, I want to unpack two concepts that I speak quite frequently about, not only in this space, but in probably every space. If you have joined me in healing circles, if you have taken any of my classes, I talk a lot about intergenerational trauma and healing. I am very, very passionate about this topic because I feel very, very strongly until we can get to the root of healing a lot of our generational traumas in terms of breaking patterns, in terms of creating starting new behaviors, starting new ways of being in relationship with ourselves and our families. And until we are able to let go and unpack and heal and cleanse a lot of this old trauma, old baggage, that continues to reinscribe itself. And so we have to continue to unpack and release. And so that's why it's so important that we have the tools and we get the help that we need, so we can be able and be in a position to, as we are triggered and as these things begin to come back to us, that we're empowered to be able to release it from our bodies, to heal our bodies, and to break the cycle, break the patterns, to stop the transmission of all of this intergenerational pain and trauma. And so, as such, my dissertation, that's the focus of my dissertation, is on healing intergenerational trauma, interrupting intergenerational trauma in Black women through embodied spiritualities. And the reason why I focus on women in particular and Black women specifically is because not only do we carry the entire um, human race in our bodies, but Black women in particular have a lot of trauma as it relates to our bodies through to historical abuse, historical dehumanization, all that is linked back to slavery, colonialism, and systemic oppressions that continue to this day. And so we have to create, or we have to invest in our own healing to heal those soul wounds in order not to pass it on to our offspring. That's all women, but in particular Black women dealing with historical trauma. And so I'll talk about that. And so as a Black woman, I can, very confidently speak to how intergenerational trauma shows up in our bodies based upon the historical traumas that that are and were experienced by our mothers, our grandmothers, their mothers, and on down the line. And I'll start with just a really simple example. It's not simple in the aspect as it doesn't affect us. It's just simple in the aspect um, that it's just easy to talk about and easy to kind of relate to what I'm talking about when I say historical trauma and intergenerational trauma. So I'll start with the premise of our beauty, aesthetics, Black hair. So during slavery and colonization and beyond, Black women's bodies have been traditionally and historically viewed as over sexualized or repulsive or not the norm or not in the vein of the standards of beauty in terms of white society. Our hair, when we talk about our hair, it's often viewed as short or ugly or nappy or coarse. We have all these judgments around our hair and our bodies. And it really is rooted into the societal standards of beauty, which are really rooted into this ideology of white superiority, of white women and white beauty. And so there's always this comparison. And that's historical. And it's historical, but it's also contemporary because over time we've embodied and internalized those negative stereotypes or those degrading images of what Black womanhood looks like. And so, through these messages that have spanned through generations, that have been passed down consciously and subconsciously, it creates or it embodies with us insecurities and shame in our bodies about our hair. And so then we have this unconscious need sometimes to exploit our bodies for validation or to have long, wavy, straight hair. And again, in many instances, this becomes part of our culture. But it is rooted in historical intergenerational trauma. And so, if you grab the book, My Grandmother's Hands, and I think I alluded to this book in the last Wellness and Wisdom talk a couple of weeks ago, Resmaa Menakem, he states that, and I say in quotes, unhealed trauma that gets transmitted and compounded through multiple families and generations begins to look like culture. And so let's dig deeper into this concept of intergenerational trauma. So the definition, the I would say scholarly or textbook definition of intergenerational trauma is the unconscious transmission of parents' post-traumatic effects of trauma to their offspring. And so there is growing evidence that supports theories which suggest that offspring are affected by parental trauma exposures that occur both before birth and possibly even prior to their conception, to children's conception. And so this is being proven and studied and researched now. So, as such, trauma retentions can be passed from one generation to the next as silent embodied experiences. And so, to break that down even further, in other words, our children may unknowingly live out their parents' trauma retentions through nonverbal, non conscious mechanisms like psychic memory, epigenetics, behavioral modeling, and energy transmission without ever having direct exposure to the actual trauma event. Or it could be both and. So within their bodies, they can be carrying the trauma retentions of their parents, grandparents, and those who came before, along with having their own embodied trauma experiences. So, for example, take a 5-year-old little Black girl who's fixated on how her hair looks. Hair is everything for Black women. And so this little girl who, only 5 years old, fixated on her hair, how her hair looks, or if somebody else's hair, kids tease other kids and she got nappy hair. Her mama didn't do her hair. Hair is a big thing in our community. And so where does that come from? You know, Sometimes it's taught and it comes from the behaviors that we witness within our households. But again, it is also automatic. It is also generational. And so I remember being a preteen and my mother refused to let me get my hair pressed. And she said, I eventually got it pressed, but I had to be 13. That was her thing. In order to get your hair straightened, you had to be 13. You had to be a teenager. In order to get a perm, so I wasn't able to get a perm until I was 18. So I had to be 18 before I got my first perm at 18 before I went away to college. And so these were kind of like her rules. But then I just remember being in grade school and all the other girls had their hair straightened and, slicked down and here's my hair all bushy and thick. And I hated that. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. Where does that come from? Because all the other girls' hair was long and flowing and curly with pin curls and all of that. And my hair, I would always say was nappy and in pigtails. Even remember, like for picture day, I had like this ponytail, but then I would pull some of the hair out just so I could have bangs because I wanted my hair to be loose and straight. And I look crazy as hell on that picture. But anyway, and so our what you can call infatuation, but it's not really. It's indoctrination with hair begins at an early age. And it really stems from the internalized oppression that we carry about our hair being substandard or about our hair being vastly different than the norm, about our hair not being like easy to maintain or not looking long and luxurious and flowing. And so this begins at a very, very young age. And so now take another 5-year-old little girl who's kicked out of her classroom by a white teacher or faculty member for having her hair braided with extensions. And you can research hundreds of stories out there about the policing of Black children and their hair. And so their hair in white spaces is often considered a distraction. It's considered to be unkept. And again, it's not the standard. It's not the image of universal beauty. It's not seen as neat. And so because of all of these judgments about our hair, now you got this 5-year-old little girl that is already carrying the intergenerational trauma in her body about her hair, the internalized oppression in her body about her hair. And now that trauma has been reinscribed in her body from her own personal experiences. And so that trauma becomes compounding, and so it just begins to create more blocks, more density, more trauma that needs to be addressed and healed. And so think about the trauma that's inscribed in the bodies of our young Black men who are also policed about their hair. I don't know how many times I have told my youngest son, because he has a big afro and he keeps thinking about getting dreads and getting dreads. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know, because I don't want him to be policed or criminalized because of his hair. And so that's a trauma response. I'm going to keep it real. That's a perfect example of historical and intergenerational trauma. That fear of being policed, that fear of being criminalized in this society. And so that lives in my body. And as a result, it lives in his body as well every time we have this conversation, because there is this energy or feeling of not being free, of not being able to do what you may want to do. Okay. And so that's trauma. And so that's the point that I'm making. Not only is it intergenerational historical trauma, it's contemporary trauma, because we all have our own experiences. So our children are dealing with their parents' trauma effects and their own individualized trauma effects. And again, it becomes compounding trauma. So the fact that Black hair and Black bodies continues to be policed by societal standards, this really does contribute to what I'm talking about when ongoing compounded historical trauma effects that live and breathe in our bodies. And I bring this up because the only way that it can be healed or dealt with is if we talk about it, if we acknowledge it, and if we consciously do the things that we need to do to remove that block, to change the narrative, to create anew, to protect our energy, And so all of these things I want to talk a little bit about, just in terms of things we can do to start addressing the historical trauma that we all carry in our bodies. And so another historical trauma effect that impacts our bodies is this innate fear of police and the avoidance of white bodies in all white spaces. Okay. There's an automatic constriction that takes place in our bodies and a dialogue that ensues in our heads around our safety and our ability to uniquely and fully be ourselves in these spaces. That's trauma. And every time we feel that constriction, every time we feel we have to protect ourselves, every time we feel we have to defend ourselves, every time we feel that we have to minimize ourselves or be smaller, it creates a trauma effect in our bodies. And so these are some of the trauma effects that have been transmitted for generations. And a lot of it is rooted in the control, the destruction, the suppression, the oppression of Black bodies, Black lives. And so it is a trauma that we walk around with every day that we don't talk about, and that we just push through. So I'm here to kind of open that can of worms, because not only do we need to talk about it, I mean, we know it's there. We talk about it amongst each other and then we just keep it moving. But we don't do anything to consciously heal it, to consciously get the help that we need to heal it. And so, in order to heal the effects of intergenerational trauma, this is where the ideology of intergenerational healing comes into place. Because healing, it just doesn't happen. You have to consciously do the work. And so how do we do the work? Especially when it's work that we're not inscribing it on ourselves. We're not re-inscribing it on ourselves. Society and people in close proximity to us are continuing to trigger these traumatic effects. So it's not like historical trauma in the essence where that was way back then in slavery. It's still happening today. And so, how do we process that? How do we heal it? Okay. So, first thing we have to do is acknowledge that it exists in all of our bodies. We need to stop silencing, masking, hiding, and suppressing it. Stop being so resilient. Stop trying to ignore it. Stop, we don't want to talk about that. We just know that happens and we don't want to talk about that. But that energy doesn't go anywhere. It just stays stuck within our bodies. And then it begins to inform all the decisions that we make. It impacts our relationships. So we must stop simply calling it culture or personality or behavior. We need to recognize that it is collective, historical, and contemporary trauma, and we must address it, because it is residing in our bodies. It is causing havoc in our bodies, and we're passing that same energy on to the next generation and to the next generation. And so we must incorporate tools, rituals, and practices into our lives to consciously, I keep using the word consciously, because again, healing doesn't happen if you don't consciously do anything to heal, to do the work to heal. And so we have to look for practices and rituals and tools that we can integrate into our daily lives to begin to release these energies, to begin to shift, to begin to have different conversations, change the narratives, to heal those generational patterns as we are exploring them in our own lives. What does it look like? What did I learn from my mother? What am I carrying from my mother? What am I carrying from my father? And what have I passed on to my sons? Let's take a look at it, you know, and let's heal it. Okay. And when I say heal it, healing means to balance it out, to balance it out. So all trauma is embodied. It lives in our bodies, so it can only be healed through embodied practices that help us release that energy, that stuck block energy, to help us release those stories, to help us release the psychosis that it caused. And so we need to seek help from culturally competent therapists and healing practitioners, who can really speak to the effects that historical and contemporary collective trauma plays in our bodies. We must go beyond our limited understanding of trauma and pain and remember who we are beyond the perils of our toxic environments, really understanding environments and how it affects every single last one of us. Doing the work to connect to source and spirit and our ancestors to heal those soul wounds, those wounds that we just can't get to, that we just don't have words for. And so for women in particular, and men in particular, who support women, who love their children, contributing to a peaceful, nurturing inner womb environment for the next generations to be born. without all of the toxic arguing, with all the toxic judging, without all the things that come with a interruptive or a disruptive, that's the word I'm looking for, a disruptive womb environment. Men stop stressing the women out, and women, y'all stop being stressed out when you carrying these babies. Okay, it's so important, so very, very important that we are mindful about our inner environments. And we must reclaim our cultural identities and worldviews that put us in direct alignment with our ancestors to heal our lineages. And so when we do the conscious work to heal our bodies, we are healing seven generations, past generations, and seven future generations. And so that's why it's so very important that we consciously do the work to heal, to heal, to heal. Not to survive, not to be resilient, not to just get over it, not to just suppress it, not to just keep it moving, but to acknowledge it and get the help we need to heal it. And not just live with it, not just live with the pain and with the trauma and with you know, And so now I want to open up the space for any of your thoughts or personal questions, anything that you have on your mind and heart. Now is the time to share. And then as you ask questions, it could be, something that somebody else is thinking about. And so don't be afraid to post your questions in this space. And then, of course, you can reach out to me later. Up, my speaker is still on, so let me turn it down. Hello, my beautiful friend Serena. Oh, I miss you so much. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Teresa, thank you. Thank you. I am so happy that you are enjoying or watching these lives. So thank you for that compliment. I appreciate you too. I really do. I really do. One of the things I want to do, and Teresa, I'm thinking about you and saying this. My cousin Jania reached out to me and asked me about pulling together a retreat. And so I had already been flirting with the idea of doing a women healing women retreat, because I think that we need more spaces to talk about things like this, and not just to talk about them, to heal them, to do the work to heal them, to be able to identify the trauma that resides in our body and to get to the root cause of how we heal it, how we release it, and how we make more space for the things that we want to feel and to experience within our lives. And so I am really thinking about pulling together this retreat. So Teresa, I will keep you posted. I will definitely keep you posted, because that is something that like I said, I've been flirting with it for a while. And so more to come on that. Yes, we all need healing. We all need healing. And that's part of this process. That's the reason why I say a lot, or I reiterate acknowledging so much, because we do a good job of surviving. We as a people, we gonna survive. We gonna make it do what it do. We're resilient. We're gonna keep it moving. We're gonna keep going to work. We're gonna keep living. But at what cost? What does that look like? What does that feel like? That's how we end up becoming like literally the walking dead. Because we give up an ability to really feel joy. We give up our ability to feel like fully realized whole human beings. We give up our ability to experience living without fear. And so being just resilient and suppressing and pushing through, it's a trade-off involved, versus getting to the root, healing at the root, versus being able to sit in it and say, I need some help. I'm tired of being sad. I'm tired of being angry. And again, we as Black people, we carry a lot of collective trauma that has just been, it's time to heal it. It's time to heal it. Every time you turn on it. In fact, my auntie today posted this video of a 10-year old, and I'm trying not to cry right now, a 10-year-old Black little boy who took a bag of Doritos. And he said he didn't do it. It was another little kid. Took a bag of Doritos out of a store. Do you know the police officers handcuffed that baby, threw him in the car, and this baby crying and crying and crying. And so how does that unfold? How does that trauma unfold? So the trauma he's already embodying trauma from being a little Black boy. Okay, that he received from his parents, grandparents, the historical trauma. Now the trauma is being reinscribed by this fear of the police. My grandbaby, Olive, 8 years old, he is petrified of police. Little Black boys should not be petrified. They are petrified of police. So now you got this 10-year-old baby who is petrified, crying and crying and crying, while 5 police officers, full grown ass men, handcuffing him, putting him in the car, and so now you're dealing with the trauma that baby is going to embody for the rest of his life from this experience. And you're dealing with the trauma of everybody watching it. Me watching it. I had to turn it off. I had to ground. I had to go walk outside. So it was things that I needed to do just from witnessing it. So that is collective trauma. That is collective trauma. Knowing that could have been my son at 10 years old. In fact, when my son was 10 years old, the police were in the neighborhood looking for a little kid. I think this little kid was 12 or 13. He was older than my son. This other little Black boy who used to do just little stuff, getting into trouble, whatever. And so my son is a good kid. He went to the day. Went the daycare was a block away from my house. And so he's walking home. Do you know the police stopped him? Pulled him to the side, start asking him questions. My baby is 10 years old. Don't talk to my child. So that's the energy. He comes home and tells me this, and I am sick to my stomach. I'm like furious. I'm ready to go to the police station. And he's so afraid for me that he says, "No, Ma, please, I beg you, don't go. Don't say," because I wanted answers. Don't talk to my child is 10 years old. Find his mother, talk to his mother. Don't talk to him. And so that is what I wanted to communicate when I went to was going to go to the police station, but I didn't do it because my baby begged me not to go out of fear. That 10-year-old boy is already traumatized. Already traumatized at 10. So that's collective trauma. That's historical trauma that lives and breathes in his body. And we have to work to release that. It's very real. No longer can we suppress it because it begins to shape and inform all of our decisions. This is the work. This is the work. Hey, Jania, I was just talking about you and mentioning the retreat. And so I am thinking very, very seriously about it. I had already, as I was telling Teresa, like I had, was already flirting with the idea of doing a women healing women retreat this summer. And so, yeah, I think I am going to move forward with doing it. And so I will keep you posted. So thank you for the suggestion. That's okay. That's okay. And so, any other thoughts or comments? And let me um, open up my restream comments to see if I have any more. Okay. So with all of that said, you all can see why this the whole concept of intergenerational historical trauma is really big, because it needs to be interrupted, and we have to have tools and ways and methods of getting the help that we need to interrupt it, so we can stop repeating these patterns of pain and patterns of anger and patterns of trauma. I don't want my son to have the same conversation with his son. I want my son to feel empowered to protect his son. Unlike I felt not fully empowered to protect my son, because my son felt that he needed to protect me. And so, yeah, these are the trauma effects that we live with every day, that need to be addressed, that need to be healed, and coming up with and immersing ourselves in ways and methods and tools that we can start to release that trauma. And so having an understanding, and this again, I'm just scratching the surface with this live, but having an understanding of historical intergenerational trauma, it definitely brings us one step closer to healing it. Because most of the times we can't even name it. We don't have the words, and we can't name it. And so I invite you to begin to reflect on patterns of inherited trauma as it's showing up currently in your lives, and is rooted in your relationship with yourself and those closest to you. Because when you begin the work to heal your individual and collective trauma, you enter into a cycle of intergenerational healing. And that's what we're after. We're after healing. We're after healing ourselves individually. We're after healing our collective selves. We're after healing the generations behind us and the generations in front of us. And that's the work. And so, if you want to continue this discussion, or if something has been triggered in you and you want to talk to me on a personal or a one on one basis, please reach out to me. I will put my email address in the comments. You all have my website, journeytowholeness.org. Again, I do offer intuitive healing and spiritual life coaching sessions, where I do work a lot with trauma. And so please reach out to me. Reach out to me. I have resources that I can definitely share with you. And I also strongly encourage you. I mentioned several times, I think, in this live, Resmaa Menakem's book, My Grandmother's Hands. And so I'll put the title of his book out in the description as well. And also read Joy Degruy's book, Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And that'll give you some additional insight to historical and generational trauma. So I thank you again for sharing the space with me. I am sending you all love and blessings for the rest of a wonderful week. I know this was a heavy topic and a heavy subject to talk about in this space, but again, it's time that we heal these wounds that I call soul wounds. And so I will be back on here. Well, I will not be, I'll be traveling again next Wednesday. So I will not be on here next Wednesday, but I will be on the following Wednesday. And so you all have a wonderful night. I'm sending you so much love and many blessings. I'm going to check real fast. Any last minute comments? Nope. I love you all, and I'll talk to you soon.